Okay, let's continue on with the series on government in sociology, how we study it and what we understand from it. Let's look at what we were talking about a little bit in the last lecture, which is what Weber was talking about the government and the political systems, right? So Weber talks about power in the political system in a variety of forms. Okay, he talks about it and he labels one as the traditional authority, where power is legitimized by respect for long-standing cultural patterns and beliefs. And this is the case for many places. You'll see, not just if you're thinking about a monarchy, you're not considerably wrong about that, but also the situation in certain areas of the world where particular ruling families or founding families are given importance, right? Another is rational legal authority, where power is legitimized by legally enacted rules and regulations. This must sound familiar because democratic societies are rational legal authoritative societies. So the government is legitimizing their power by enacting certain rules and regulations, and democracy is a particularly good example of that. Then there's the charismatic authority, the power legitimized by an extraordinary personal quality of a leader. So if a person has like is very charismatic in nature, that leader, then they are able to lead a kind of political movement that would put them in authority. Adolf Hitler was one of these people, and Martin Luther was one of these people also, and he fought for the civil rights movement. And while Adolf Hitler stood for things that were so wrong in the world, right? We just talked about racism last week, and prejudice and bigotry and everything. But even then, we have to consider the fact that how did he get the backing? How did he, how was he able to get the people to follow him? Because he was a charismatic authority, because he was able to legitimize his power through the qualities he had as a leader. Now, we can say that this kind of charismatic authority is somewhat problematic. If you look at it in contemporary terms, uh, this seems to be the most problematic, since it can be transformed into something of a combination of traditional and the rational legal authority. And this itself would create an issue. It'll create an amalgamation of things happening. For example, an example of that would be Justin Trudeau coming into power in Canada, right? He is the son of a former PM. He was touted to be PM, even though his background was in teaching. He wasn't in politics until very recently, until up to a point where he was able to get in power, get in position of power, right? And he was part of a democratic system that then uh, voted him into power, right? So there was some sort of rational legal authority attached to the charismatic authority that led him to be in power and still continue to be in power. You know, and somewhat the system has now, after the elections recently, has kind of subdued his space in the government, but it still exists. He is still the prime minister, isn't he? You know, so we have to think about things more intricately than we did before. That's how we do things in sociology. Look at the nuances, look at the intricacies that exist within society, even when it comes to systems like the government, power, and authority. These are important aspects we must consider. Now, lots of political systems exist in the world, and one of which was worldwide and started mainly from Europe was the idea of monarchy. Monarchy is a political system in which power was legitimized by the ideas of traditional authority, like I said before, and held by a single family. It was seen to exist mostly in Europe because they had an idea that the king had a position of power based on divine rule, right? And that way his power was being legitimized, or her power, the queen. It relied mostly on traditional authority then, right? However, monarchy is just one form of what we call authoritarianism, right? Authoritarianism is any system that defines people participation in their own governments, uh, and leaves ruling to the elite. So, what does that mean? It means that authoritarian regimes basically tell the citizens of that location, what to do, and only the elites get to make that decision. And however these elites get into power is a matter of another question. Because when you think about it, it not one kind of authoritarian regime exists. There are different kinds that exist over the world and have existed over the world. Another version of this is something called totalitarianism. Sorry, another form of authoritarianist rule. Totalitarianism is a centralized political system that extensively regulates people's lives. It has some of the legal rational authority that democracy does, but is still some form of traditional authority that exists, you know? So something, while like the case of maybe Russia, some areas of Africa also have this kind of rule. Some parts of South Asia, Southeast Asia. We can talk about more about what that means and with what in the contemporary world, how that exists today in class. And this is the end of the second video about governance for SOC 101. Thank you.